Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the office hours. All right, just giving a minute or so for everybody else to join in, and then we'll get started.
在想我到底能不能
已经submit 了。
All right, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Aman Singh, and I'm the maintainer of the Drasi project, and I'll be the primary mentor for this particular GSOC project. Now, we'll try to divide this session into two halves. The first half, I'll try to cover some material, and then the second half, I'll open up for question and answers. Now, I'm assuming that most of you would have read the proposal guide that I posted on Discord, and maybe you've also started looking at the code base. So we'll today talk a bit about the project itself and how you can probably write like a stronger proposal, how you could probably split the GSOC project in particular, into 3 milestones. So yeah, let's get started. So this project is kind of spanning two different CNCF projects, one being Drasi and the other one being Dapr agents. The interesting and then also the risky part about this project is that both these CNCF projects are kind of new. So the Drasi itself is at the sandbox maturity level. Dapr has been graduated in CNCF, but the Dapr agents itself is still version 1.0, and the version 1.0 was released pretty recently. So yeah, let's take a look at how we can try to de-risk uh, some of the risks that exist with this project because of the underlying frameworks being relatively new. So before we start, I'm assuming that you've read the Discord guide. In case you haven't, let me know if you have any questions about that. And then we'll try to cover the architecture underneath, and we'll try to capture why we are doing what we are doing. Some of the design questions I may not answer directly because there might not be like a direct single answer there. So there might be a couple of approaches, and you may want to explore those approaches in your proposal. The reason behind that is we want to see your thinking, and we want to see how you make those design decisions. So make sure to include those in your proposal and write your justifications based on like whatever option you select. And finally, I'd like to say that especially once the presentation ends, it's just any question is fair game. Please feel free to ask whatever questions you may have about the 3 milestones, the project, or anything else you may have encountered. All right, so let's start with ambient agents themselves, right? So before we get into the technical problem, let's define the concept around which the project is built around. So ambient agents are agents that run in the background and they keep on monitoring for events, right? And they act only when something meaningful has happened. So this is in contrast to typical chat-based agents that we see uh, widely in use today. For example, if we take a look at chatgpt.com or claude.com or Perplexity or whatever, right? So in all of these modes, whenever we interact with an AI agent, it's typically a human posing a question or a task to the agent in a prompt, and then the agent responding back. And that's true for even coding agents like, let's say, Cursor or Claude Code or GitHub Copilot, etc. Now, ambient agents are slightly different. So what we are aiming for here is that the agent can basically be autonomous, and it's basically sleeping until the relevant change happens. And then when the change happens, it gets triggered, and then it just takes the relevant action. So there's no human involved in typing a prompt every time. It needs to take an action. Now, the ambient agent may have a situation where it needs to get an approval from a human for taking a certain action, so that's fine, but it just doesn't need the human for the prompting for every single task. So as I said, like basically there's three key properties here. So they are typically like driven by some kind of change in their environment. It could be data changes, like a new row getting inserted into a database, maybe a threshold has been breached, or maybe another status has been updated. The second property of ambient agents is they're typically that they can sleep until they're needed. So they're basically burning zero compute when they're idle. So ideally, they should not be doing any polling or keep any connections open, and they should be able to do a full scale to zero. And that really fits in with Dapr agents, right? So Dapr agents are virtual actor based, so they definitely support that behavior. Finally, autonomous action, right? So when they are awakened, they should be able to reason and decide and act. So they should escalate to human only when necessary. And this whole thing, ambient agents term, was popularized by the blog from LangChain. So you can take a look at that, and the link is on the slide. So this GSOC project is aiming to make ambient agents possible by combining Drasi's continuous query engine with Dapr agents' durable actor model. So the goal here is that Drasi will watch for changes to happen, and then it will awaken Dapr agents when needed. So let's start by looking at the core problem, right? So imagine you have a customer support scenario. You may have like thousands and thousands of customer tickets being opened, and you want an agent that only wakes up when a ticket is marked as critical, right? So imagine you have a database table for all of these tickets, and one of the columns is uh, the the ticket status or something like that. Now, whenever a particular ticket is marked as critical, so that means that that particular ticket's row in the database table has the value critical in the status column. Now, when that happens, we want the agent to get started working on its task, right? So how do we do that? So first option could be to just do polling, right? If we query the database, let's say every 10 seconds, so that'll be like hundreds of thousands of queries per day for that single table. So we are basically wasting the compute when most of the times nothing might have been changed in the database table. If you try to reduce the frequency, so then what could happen is that you miss changes between different poles. The other option could be to have the agent up and running, listening to events, perhaps on a WebSocket channel or server-side events channel. But then now your container or the agent is alive 24/7 just to listen. And that kind of breaks the scale to zero option that we're looking for. The reason behind that is we are basically paying for uh, idle compute there, even though nothing is happening. And the reconnection logic, again, there is fragile. So this is the sleep paradox, right? So the solution here is at the bottom of the slide. So what we want is that the infrastructure should be able to watch. So we should have some kind of infrastructure. Now that could be Drasi or Drasi's reaction here that watches. So not just reaction. So Drasi's different components like Drasi sources could watch some kind of data changes, Drasi queries could evaluate those changes, and then Drasi reactions could be triggering the agent, such that the agent written in Dapr agents can basically scale down to zero. And then the infrastructure side, which is basically Drasi, is monitoring for those changes and basically pushing the agent when the necessary conditions have occurred. That's what this project is aiming for. Now, let's take a look at the three different milestones that are part of this project, right? So let's start with the first one. So you may have looked at the source code and you may have seen that we have a post pub sub reaction, a post pub sub reaction, sorry, in Drasi. So what this does is it allows you to post the result if events into the Dapr pub sub. And then on the Dapr agent side, you can of course configure Dapr agents to wake up on getting a message on a particular pub sub channel. But if we look at the experience today, right? So that's something. It looks like something on the left-hand side of this. So you have to deploy the C# reaction. The reaction is written in C# today, so you have to deploy that separately, and then you have to match the topic names manually in the YAML, and then you have to parse the raw JSON on the Dapr agent side. So there's no uh, strongly typed behavior here. So the first milestone could be to basically have a simplified experience, right? So to basically make the developer experience better here, so that we can have like a decorator pattern here. We can have topic names that can be defined by convention, and then the IDE autocomplete should be able to work. So this is the like developer experience that the first milestone is trying to close. The developer experience gap that the project is trying to close in the first milestone. So if you think about it, right, so how does the entire flow happen from the data change all the way to the workflow executing, right? So effectively, the Dapr agents are encoding kind of like a workflow. So initially, you start with the database change, and then the change detection happens. The Drasi query evaluates the internal pub sub between the query engine and the reaction gets the message. And then on the reaction side, you basically do the processing, format it into cloud events, publishes it into the topic, and then the Dapr agents picks up the message where the sidecar will deliver it to the agent, and then there the trigger would happen for the agent, right? So that's the milestone one. Now here, if you see, significant portion of on the left-hand side and the right-hand side exists already. Most likely you'll have to build this part here and perhaps small changes on the Dapr agent side. Perhaps we need to add the Pythantic models over there so that they can understand the Drasi's format. This reaction, either it can be a new reaction or you can propose to update the existing one, depends on you. Both approaches are fine. You can propose whatever you prefer, and you can write a justification for that. And like this is how the reaction could look like, right? So basically, this could be the output, the cloud event output for the reaction, where the source could be defining which query the event is coming from, and it's basically defining the type and the ID. So remember that the Pydantic models for Dapr agents could be derived from the source of truth on the Drasi side, which is in the type spec folder. So this is like the difference, right? So the existing post pub sub reaction cannot control the source, the type, and the ID, which are needed for the Dapr agents. So even though the slide here says that this is why the new reaction is needed, it's totally up to you. You could also repurpose the existing one if that works for you. Now, finally, this is the third part of the first milestone. So you need to add like a Drasi trigger decorator on the Dapr agent side. So on the left is what the developer would just write. So they just write a decorator with a query ID and the handler function. And this is what it compiles to under the hood, right? So it becomes like a standard Dapr agent's message router subscription with the full pub sub name and the convention based topic name and the typed message model. So what this gives us is a few things, right? So gives us the topic name derivation so that there's no hard-coded topic strings. The cloud event source is validated, and then the automatic deserialization into a Pydantic model can happen here. And of course, you can also do sequence-based deduplication, right? Because Drasi may have at least once delivery guarantees. So this is optional. This is not required, but if possible, you could also do deduplication based on cloud event ID. And then the other optional part is you could also do dead letter topic configuration for failed messages. So it's a thin wrapper, but it makes the developer experience much better. And that's basically the happy path, right? So that's the simpler path where you have a static configuration on the Dapr agent side. So you are telling the Dapr agent that, hey, this is the query that I want you to subscribe to. So that brings me to the second milestone, which is the main or the core innovation that's involved in this project. So this second, the goal here is effectively to enable ambient agents, right? So the goal here is to enable agents that can discover data streams at runtime and subscribe to them dynamically without code changes. So the ideally we would like to enable Dapr agents that don't necessarily know the query IDs at deploy time. It can run its logic. The LLM can basically discover all of the data streams available. So when I say data stream, so I mean that these are basically Drasi queries, right? So think of it in a way where there's like a large company, and the infrastructure engineers are different from the people who are writing the Dapr agents, right? So yes, there will be somebody on the infrastructure side who would be configuring the queries. So we are not like writing the queries at runtime. Yes, the queries will be configured by somebody, but the person writing the agent might be different. So uh, the person or the team on the infrastructure side may have written, let's say, 100 queries, right? And they have written all of these queries with their appropriate description about what kind of data they are providing. And then on the agent side, the agent should be able to dynamically discover those queries, perhaps using a tool, maybe a Dapr agents tool, or maybe MCP. So that's totally up to you. So the goal here is that on the Drasi side, we need something like a smart router, which could be perhaps like a reaction. That's kind of like stateful, right? So it needs some kind of routing rules, and it also needs to expose the list of queries and the subscription capabilities so that the Dapr agent can subscribe to, or maybe first list the queries that are available and then subscribe to the appropriate one. And then on the Dapr side, we need to add like a tool that basically uses the SDK for easy connection. So the deliverable for this would be essentially like a smart router on the Drasi side, and the tools that allow the Dapr agents to explore what data is available, and also the Dapr agents should be able to attach themselves to the streams dynamically. Does that make sense? Is there any questions right now? Okay. Okay, let's continue then. And then finally, like the third milestone would is kind of optional. So the first two are kind of required. The third is like a stretch goal. So it depends on how much time you are left with. So the goal there is to just have a ambient support demo or ambient agents demo that proves the value of ambient AI with a clean database-driven scenario. Now, this could be any scenario that you want. We don't necessarily we are not necessarily set on a particular scenario. Just as an example, you could have, let's say, a customer support based ambient agent. So maybe you could have a Postgres database that stores customer support tickets, and maybe Drasi continuous query could monitor these tickets and only select the ones that have a priority marked as critical, right? Or maybe ones that match a specific keyword or something like that. And then the Dapr age support agent will basically be sleeping or effectively scaled to zero. Whenever the user inserts a new critical ticket into the database, Drasi should be able to detect that change, and the router should be able to publish that event to all of the agents that have subscribed. So the agent, when started, would basically discover the data stream and subscribe to it, and then go back to sleep. And when the Drasi detects the change, it will publish the event, and then the agent will wake up. So the agent receives the event, and then, if needed, it could also use other tools like MCP or database tools, and this is completely optional, of course, and to get more details if needed. So if the Drasi event did not give it all of the details, if it needs more details to act on its workflow, it can fetch those using other tools, and then drafts like a response using the LLM, or maybe update the status to in progress or something like that. So that is just one example, but you can always use any other example that you may find suitable. And this example or the third milestone can depend on how much time you are left with in the project, right? Because the first two, the first milestone is the foundation, the second one is also crucial. So those two are the main part of the project. This final part is more like showcasing what you've built, right? So it's also important, but then if you're left with less time, you can make a much simpler demo. If you're left with more time, you can, of course, expand the demo as much as you please. All right, so what are we looking for in the proposals, right? So the first is that show that you have read the code. So ideally, uh, like don't just say that you've built the reaction. You can specify that how you're going to build the reaction, like maybe reference in your own words, like what have you seen so far in the code, what kind of methods you'll be using, or what approaches you'll be taking. If you encountered like different approaches, how did you make that decision? So that's like the second part of it, right? So make the design decisions. So whether you're selecting, for example, Python or TypeScript for the smart router on Drasi side, how will the routing rules be stored, etc. What happens if the query does not exist yet, etc. And there's no necessarily no right answer, right? So even if let's say you propose a particular approach and later on we figure out that the approach doesn't make sense, and we may want to use a different approach during the implementation phase, that is also okay. But right now we just want to see your thought process. And then I think this particular project in GSOC is kind of a bit more open-ended. So it has a lot of hard parts, especially because both the underlying CNCF projects are newer, right? So Drasi is still at the sandbox maturity level, and Dapr agents just had their version 1.0 just got released. So a lot of things will be changing as we continue to work on these two projects, and a lot of rough edges will be there in both of the projects, right? So there will be a lot of hard parts. Maybe the SDK doesn't expose whatever you need for building your agent, so that's totally fine. If you are identifying some of these things in your proposal, so that's good too. So name all of the challenges that you find out, and if possible, plan for them. Even if the challenges that you encounter are not necessarily about coding. Let's say you are not familiar with a certain section of Drasi, or maybe on the Dapr agent side. That's fair too. So just honestly document that in your proposal. So that also is helpful for us to evaluate how much planning you have done about the project, right? And finally, scope realistically. So as I said, milestone one is the happy path, where we just have a statically configured Dapr agent. So that's the foundation. That gives you like a low-hanging fruit to achieve in your initial phase of the project, so that you have something tangible to run. And then the milestone two is the core of innovation in this project, and that is where you should give the most depth in your proposal. And finally, milestone three proves that the solution that you built will be working end to end. All right, so some of the common things that we see on the proposals. So on the left-hand side is things ideally you should avoid, and on the right-hand side, I'll try to mention things you should do. So, for example, try to mention, for example, how you would update the existing reaction, or why it doesn't work, why it's not sufficient. or like if you want to build a new one, then specify why you would want to do that. And then in timelines, try to mention that why you have like spent X number of weeks on this particular problem. And if there is a particular area that you're not familiar with, so you can mention that I'll be spending some time doing ramp up on that area. So that's also fine. Other thing is like if you have any other commitments, like maybe in university, you have exams. So you can also mention like if you have some particular weeks where your availability will be lower. So that's totally fine as well. Just planning around that would be much better than just mentioning that at the last minute, right? So finally, the AI policy. So we are planning to add the AI policy to our project. Now, uh, the AI tools like Claude Code, Cursor, GitHub Copilot have improved productivity for everybody. So they are definitely welcome. And the Drasi team uses these tools ourselves. So we are not against AI. The only thing that we ask is that you should disclose the AI usage in your commits, perhaps by adding like a assisted by or co-authored by or something like that. And the main part here is that even if the AI is writing the code in your commits, you should be able to explain every single line of code whenever we do the PR review. So we may or may not ask for you to explain. When I say explain every line, I don't mean that you basically write like 1,000 lines of PR description. The PR description should still be fine, but in case the maintainers ask for you to explain a certain portion of your change set, you should be able to explain that in your own words. Um, Avoid like writing just AI-based explanations as it is. You should be able to understand because think of it this way, right? So the one of the goals of GSOC is also for you to learn and improve your software engineering skills. So ideally, you should be able to explain every line of your code. And then coming to the proposal, so this is really important for you to write by yourself. So uh, we will, of course, have a conversation about your design decisions, and if you cannot explain the reason behind your choices, so that's a problem. So we definitely want to evaluate based on your understanding of the code bases, and we are not trying to evaluate based on your typing speed or your how good your English is in the proposal. So, yeah, like try to write your own proposal. If English is not your first language, it's okay to maybe improve the prose a little bit using AI, but like try to use your own words. So I'll try to link the AI policy in the Discord channel. So do read that. It's just like a very small file, maybe around 30 to 40 lines. So just take a look at that. We'll be merging that into the Drasi repo and keep that in mind when making contributions or writing your proposal. All right, so the proposal deadline is coming up pretty soon. I think it's on March 31st, 6 p.m. UTC. So apply through the GSOC platform and not through GitHub or something, and avoid submitting at the last minute. I know the time is pretty short, but yeah, just in case there are any glitches with the portal at the last minute, maybe just submit by uh, 30th March or something like that. And if you have like Dapr related questions or Dapr agents related questions, so Casper is the co-mentor from Dapr agent side, and he should be available on their Discord channel. So he's the secondary mentor, so he might have limited availability for the entire project. But when we are making Dapr specific projects, he should be able to guide us in the right direction. So that's all I had, and now we can open up for any questions you may have. Feel free to raise your hand or come on unmute if you have any questions. Okay. Yeah, looks like Rishabh has no questions. But yeah, I think I replied to some of the questions that you posted in the Discord, right? And I see Tarandeep has a question. Yes, please go ahead.
Uh, so I think Rishabh are asking question. So maybe we
No, go ahead, Tarandeep. Go ahead with your question.
oh, good morning, sir. Sir, my question is like we know what to put in proposal. Like we can get some format. Like we know what to put in proposal, but like actual format, like where we put which is the first and what is the constraint. So we should not go outside that constraint.
So there's no set format per se. So are you like
Hmm.
saying like is should there be like a document template like covered this section and this section and so forth?
Uh,
Is that the question?
uh, can you repeat? I just
Yeah. So
missed.
are you asking about like a document template which
Yes,
has
like
the
I like a
header? Like
template. Yes.
yeah,
So
we don't necessarily have that. Yeah, it's totally up to you how you want to structure it. Just basically try to structure the proposal based on, let's say, you can define it in different parts, right? So maybe first part could be about your background, what interests you in the project, and then maybe talk a bit about like what investigations you've done in the two
mm,
projects, and then maybe talk about the how you would do the
how
three
long?
milestones.
At
Sorry.
least at least how much long? Like a specific number limit. We should not cross that many pages or
All right. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, try to keep it as short as possible because it'll be like for
like
us to review.
again like how much at least something approx not now but at least in Discord after that at least
Yeah,
approx number like there's many researches like on diaper side on the seaside so if we just keep adding so it will be less like a proposal more like a
yeah,
so that's why I was asking.
yeah. So yeah, so it should definitely not like the entire proposal should definitely not cross maybe 8 or 10 pages. It should probably be
Okay.
less, but I will probably write back on Discord
Yes.
on like the
Even
limit
on
on that.
that pages, like I think we should start with the most important part and we link to the less important part after. So
Yeah, and you don't need to like necessarily write any code fragments inside the proposal, right? So just write in your own words
if we
what
have
you're.
like really good, like we have just planning or everything, if we have something like a simple flow chart or anything we should add, or should we keep text only?
Yeah, you can add some diagrams to explain. Yes,
Okay.
sure.
Diagrams.
Flow chart or diagram should be fine. Yes.
Okay, so one more question from my side. Like I was asking in also in Discord, can you at least specify really difficult problem like when we are designing now? So what we are doing, we are seeing documentation, planning, and we are assuming what are the possibility, what are. So if we have really some gold standard problem, like if you can possible, or please tell me if you are not. So based on this, it might be proposal will be much more clear because if we have something like that difficult problem, so it clarify many things when we are proposing, when we are planning.
Right. So is your question more about like the third milestone, like which scenario you should
No,
pick for?
it's more like if can you specify too specific like okay we know the entirely flow but if there's a way we can have specific two examples like this is what you want from this like very difficult like we have you have joined with IoT we have with production so if you have something like specifically okay this scenario very difficult scenario so it's helped in clarifying many things like we currently when we are designing everything it's not like okay the data flows to here it's more likely okay if we take this problem so after that Drasi send this agent so it do something like work so if we have something really good problem one or two it's really help in clarifying. Currently, we are assuming at every point, okay, these are possibilities and these are not. So, if possible.
Okay. I'll try to read your question on Discord as well.
Okay.
But let me think. Like here are some of the things to think about, right? So let's say think about like the event frequency, right? So
Yes.
if the Drasi query
Hmm.
is emitting these events, so this could be one per hour or maybe one per day, or it could also be
Hmm.
like maybe tens or hundreds of events per second, right? So it could vary depending on the scenario.
Hmm. Yes.
Now we like ideally your design should handle both without any issue, right? Because if you look at Drasi, so that's
Hmm.
what it is built for. So it should be able to handle at least up to 1,000 events per second, at least the Drasi platform. That's what we have tested internally.
Hmm.
So even if let's say there's just one event happening per day, so the Drasi side is anyways running all the time, right? So it's not scaling down to
Yes.
zero, but at least we have saved the compute or the resources on the Dapr
Hmm.
agent side. So yeah, I think if you look carefully, I don't think event frequency would uh, impact the way you design. Because like if you think about it, right? So when the agent starts up, it basically or like the agent may have like a really complicated workflow, right? So whenever it
Yes.
decides to subscribe to a query, it could be either at startup or at certain point in its workflow. So whenever it lists out the queries and then figures out that hey, this is the query that I'm interested in, it subscribes to it, right? And thereafter it just goes to sleep. So it's just waiting for that. Maybe in that particular agent scenario, it's just waiting for a single event, right? So as soon as that happens, maybe the agent can then unsubscribe to that particular query. Now the query will continue to exist, right? So the query does not get deleted on the Drasi side. So query is manually configured on Drasi side by the infrastructure engineer, right? So the
Yeah.
person who is maintaining Drasi has written that query. So the query will continue to run and will continue to emit its own messages wherever they might go. But the agent can subscribe or unsubscribe to those queries. So the agent may subscribe and then get maybe one event, maybe it subscribes for 3 days or whatever, depending on its need or its own scenario, gets all those events, takes some action, and then unsubscribes perhaps, or maybe it just continues to remain subscribed. So that's totally up to the Dapper agent author. Does that make sense?
This is what I am asking. Like when we start thinking, there are many things. Like we have journal image, like these things should be. But if you have really like, if possible, if only possible, if like we have something really like we have this IoT and we want doing this. So it's like we are just doing now. So we say okay that is active. So we there are many things come in mind. Okay, this possible, this can be, and this be. So this is what I am asking. When we are designing, when we are planning, these things come in, many things come in mind, like many possibilities. But there are too many actually sometimes. So that's why I am asking. So if possible. And one last question.
Hmm.
So it might be a little contradictory like our proposal. So our proposal is mainly focused on Dapper and Darasi both, how we both work well. So
Hmm.
as I am exploring most of the time I was exploring on the Rasi side. So when I also reading the blog which is on the Microsoft is like
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
beyond the chat window and
Yeah.
MBT agents.
Hmm.
So one thing is come to mind like the Rasi is like evolving. Its ecosystem might diverse. So there's a two-way, I think. It's like my personally, I can prepare a proposal. One part. I focus more on how good Dapper and Drasi focus work together. And one side is like and Drasi side because we are already planning to make a smart routing system. So if we are already planning a planning of making a smart routing side, so we start with how to standardize this. So we focus on Dapper, but with standardization, it is possible to connect with everywhere.
I see.
So
Yes, so that's great that you're thinking about like other frameworks as
yes,
well. So maybe it can also grow beyond Dapper agents, right? So it could probably be
yes,
integrated with LangChain or some other frameworks. So
yes,
that's great. But like that might increase your work, right? So that might increase
yes.
your scope for
That's
the GSOC project.
that's why I specifically asking for this proposal. Should I focus on Dapper or the Rasi side? Because when we are like the my flow is I first try to imagine what is the possible, what we connect, like what is the Rasi current state, what we are actually wanting, what are the possibilities. So this is like in this proposal specifically, should I focus on the Rasi and Dapr side, because this proposal is especially for the Rasi and Dapr, but there's the other side. I can try to standardize the Rasi. So which you should think I should prefer for proposal?
Yeah, so let's scope this only to Dapr agents. So
Okay.
what we want is like, because I think the entire coding period is about 12 weeks or so, right?
Yes.
And that's pretty short, because let's say you create PRs on Drasi side, and then you will also
Hmm.
create PRs on the Dapr agent side. Now both of these will take some time to get merged, right? Because the reviewers
Yes.
make take some time to review, so you really won't have time
Hmm.
to make it more general. So it's
Yes.
totally fine to scope it down and keep it specific to the integration between Drasi and Dapr agents. And
Yes.
remember, like even in GSOC, there's some other work involved, like writing
Hmm.
blogs and like midterm evaluation and so forth. So yeah, I think the project itself right now itself is also pretty big. So that's why it's
Hmm.
also classified as a larger project. But
Okay.
yeah, for now, I think let's scope it down just to uh, Drasi plus Dapr agents. So we can look at, let's say, making it standardized or making it more
Hmm.
general for other frameworks later on, in case you want to
Okay.
continue with the project post the GSOC period.
Okay.
So
Sure.
that's because it's open source, right? So you can always continue to contribute. So that's definitely welcome. But for GSOC, I would recommend like keeping it limited to these three milestones, because even these three will be like
Yes.
significant work. And if let's say you have more time, right? So you can maybe improve or maybe have a more exciting demo on the third milestone.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you were asking about like the dimensions that you should be designing for, right? So I talked about event frequency. The other
Hmm.
question could be like about the result set size, right? So one of the queries might return 5 rows, or another query may have like 50,000 rows in its result set, right? So if you think about it, so the Dapper agents are just subscribing to the updates, right? So
Hmm.
whenever a thing gets added, updated, or deleted, so that's when the agents are getting this particular notification. So it shouldn't necessarily matter whether the live result set maintained by the Drasi query is
Yes.
5 or
That's why
50.
we're building smart router.
Right? And then let's think about the change patterns, right? So change patterns could be inserts, updates, deletes. For example, like in the customer support scenario, you may get like new tickets. So that could be something an agent might be interested in,
Hmm.
or it could be an update on an existing ticket. So it could be like the order status has changed or something like that. Or
Hmm.
it could also be deleted, right? So maybe an agent wants to take a look at the resolved alerts or resolved tickets. So whenever a ticket gets deleted or something, or maybe a ticket status is marked as resolved. So then let's say the Drasi query is written in such a way that it filters out the resolved ones. So whenever the ticket status is updated to resolved in the database, so the ticket is still in the database, right? So it's not removed from the database. Because the status has been changed to resolved, the result row from the Drasi's query will get removed, right? So the Drasi query will emit a deleted message. So the Dapper agent can then monitor for that and then act on that, depending on whatever the scenario is. So yeah, I think the design should basically handle all three equally, like the inserts, updates, and deletes.
The-
And then finally, for the third milestone, or the demo milestone, I would say that pick a scenario that is like, at least for beginning, if you think there will be less time. So pick a scenario that is simple enough for you to set up with like maybe perhaps like a Docker Compose file, so that maybe let's say just have a Postgres database or some
Hmm.
other database, or maybe you can have multiple as well if you like that. But just write like a Docker Compose file that sets up the database with some sample data, and then you can have like, so your deliverable as part of the third milestone can be the Docker Compose file alongside some sample agent and then some sample Drastic queries, right?
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, any more questions? So both the office hour sessions, the one yesterday and the one today, have been recorded, and I'll be uploading them to YouTube. So in case you want to go back and take a look, you can always do that. And of course, feel free to post questions on Discord, and I will try to get back to them as soon as possible. For example, I think Hay is saying that he will post on Discord. I'll watch for those. All right. I think we are on time then. If there's no more questions, that's all for today. Yeah, feel free to post questions on Discord. Thank you for your interest in the project and good luck for the GSOC proposals. All
Thank you
right.
for session.
Yeah, thank you.